So let me introduce our next keynote speaker this morning, Mike Boush. He's the head of digital and VP of e-business at Discover Financial Services. Mike oversees all Discover Card web and mobile activities, marketing, customer service, social community, application development, and brand experience. He's also responsible for the company-wide digital strategy and the online innovations group. So please join me in welcoming Mike Boush.
Okay, I think I'm just going to say next on it all. I'm going to free-form it a little bit. Wonderful, sir. All right, well, hello, everybody. I think I might be between you and lunch, so I'm going to try to be entertaining, and I certainly will be as brief as I can. It's nice to be here. I'm going to speak with you today a little bit about the company that I work for and how we manage digital innovation, certainly in Discover, which is one of the country's largest banks, as well as a payments company, the third largest payment network. We have a lot of opportunity to look at mobile commerce and decide which opportunities to take advantage of. I am absolutely 100% a customer experience wonk, and I love to talk about it, so my presentation will focus mostly on customer experience because I think it's a very interesting way to talk about mobile commerce. So let's start with a question. And it's very hard to see you all, but can somebody take a guess as to what these things have in common? And it's not a trick question. Yell it out. I'll give you a hint. There's the next generation of things. Come on. That's right. Yes, of course. They've all been displaced by a smartphone. Everything on the screen here has at one point or another been converged into a smartphone device. Obviously, the alarm clock and the camera. I was having a conversation yesterday with some people back in Chicago where I live, and I was trying to give away my flip cam. You know, those things were amazing just a few years ago, and I couldn't even give away to anybody the flip cam because, and I love my flip cam, there's nothing wrong with it, but everybody just was preferring to use their mobile phone for things. In fact, one of the photo digit heads at the barbecue that I was at said that the technology for cameras today in a mobile phone is better than the SLR technology on the mid to high price Nikon camera just 5 years ago. And it is amazing, the convergence of things. So why then not this? Why not the wallet, and why is this? This was supposed to be so obvious. This was going to be the thing that was going to revolutionize. I remember I've been at Discover for about 7 years, and I remember one of the first meetings that I had with a vendor from the outside who worked for a company that had a mobile wallet solution. And he swore to me that if I didn't sign this contract this year, and I didn't invest 8 digits into it, 7 digits into it at least, that I was going to miss the mobile wallet craze that was going to happen in 2007 no matter what, and I was a fool if I didn't sign this contract. So why is this so elusive? I think you've heard some great insights here, and you'll probably hear more throughout the week or the next few days about the difficulty of it all. You'll hear that money, credit, and banking is inherently a complex operation with lots of intermediaries and lots of middlemen taking their piece of the pie, and that it is inherently security risky. It's one of the most delicate things to get right. And there's a customer experience and a personalization, and I don't disagree with any of that. I have no idea. I have no idea why we haven't gotten a wallet yet. I would say it's probably because we haven't assembled the right mix of players and the right mix of things. But what I do think is that the industries that were disrupted by this device already, the publishing industry, the music industry, the United States Postal Service, cartography, and map makers everywhere, I think they are all subject to one force that financial services is tumbling towards, which is some sort of disruption around this. And so it's good that we're here at Mobile Commerce World, because I do believe, although I don't know how it's going to happen, that it's fairly a matter of inevitability, largely because there are a lot of things that don't work well in the system. The challenge is that a disruption sneaks up on you. Everybody knows the story about the Encyclopedia Britannica people who ignored CD-ROMs and doubled down on print volumes, or the Blockbuster story about how they got offered Netflix and they chose not to do it. The problem with disruption is it sneaks up on you. You don't see it coming. And it is a fundamental shift that replaces technology from an earlier period. So all of the traditional things that we think of as disruption, they all came about much to the peril of the prior industry. And I think that's the obvious part of disruption, right? The nuance of disruption is what happens after it takes hold. And what you start to see is innovation around the disruption itself. So as remarkable as iTunes and Netflix and the entire digital publishing, eBay, as remarkable as they are, what we're going through now in each one of those industries is incremental innovation around the initial disruption, where extra incremental margins are being created and customer niches are being isolated. And so the post-disruption problem to solve is how to manage your innovation stream. Let's face it, we are all in this room unlikely to create a disruption. We are chasing the wrong thing if we're trying to come up with a disruption. Much better, much more likely to succeed if we focus on a pattern and a strategy around innovation, and disruption may in fact sneak up on us too. So the great thing about innovation is it's pretty much universally acknowledged that this is what makes the rain. Marketing and innovation produce the results. I'm sorry, I have a degree in economics, and I like the finance folks and I love the IT folks and so forth, but marketing and innovation are what make everything else move forward, and all the rest are costs. So we have to have a strategy, and it is the thing that creates the value over the long term. At Discover, we had a series of challenges, not the least of which was that our disruption, which was that we came to the marketplace in 1986 we didn't exactly receive an open-armed welcome from our competitors. We had to figure out a different way to disrupt the market because banks had chosen a different path. So for us, our disruption came in terms of product and in terms of distribution. However, we also have determined a little bit of a bias against new things after we settled into our ways. So innovation in itself became a bit of an internal struggle for us. And we fundamentally started out using the same framework that everybody uses, which is that we look at the consumer, we try to find the business goals where they overlap, and then we do some kind of feasibility around whether we can make these things happen or not. For us, ironically, the imagination was not in the imagination was in the consumer side and in the business goal side, but the difficulty was feasibility. We're a large company, we've got a large enterprise, we operate a debit network called Pulse, we own an international transaction network called Diners Club. One of our secret sauces is a formula for rewarding customers who use their credit card with cash back. It's widely copied now, but at the time, there was nothing like it. And we have gone direct to consumer for everything. So we have not built a branch network, but instead we've gone mostly through the telephone, direct mail, and online. So our innovation is constrained along a number of different vectors, a number of different constraints, and largely feasibility seemed to be the biggest problem for us. So we decided to adopt the strategy that most large companies do, and I think this has worked out for us so far, which is, you put 60% of your money in the core, you put 30% into business adjacencies, and maybe 10% into transformational. This is particularly difficult when you're working on mobile commerce because a lot of the spend has to do with NFC and it has to do with mobile devices and the constant turnover of things. So our 60% of our budget that is spent on shoring up our card products and our banking and lending products and making our network more robust, bled off into some strategies around opening a checking account online and savings accounts and money markets. We're the third largest student lender in the country now. We've managed to expand into adjacent markets using technology in our core platforms. But the transformational stuff still remains elusive. It is definitely what the media likes to talk about. They love to talk about the future of wallets and the future of near field. And like I said, I don't have an answer to that, but I do think that that's worth investing in. The problem is you need to make sure that you are focusing on what matters to the business, and that is because the majority of your customer base is caught up in the transformation itself. We all know the stats here. We're here for mobile, and we know that phones are now the common device for our customers to access. At Discover, we have millions of card members. Mobile seems to be increasingly important in the way that they access their account. There is clearly an indication that commerce and the selection of what to buy is moving up the chain into mobile. And so we see that we have to participate in some way, and we have to make sure that we're in the game. However, we have to remember that the majority of our customers are not ready for a seismic shift to be thrust upon them. The majority of our customers just want to get to the things that they're already doing in a slightly more convenient way. And there's a paradox in financial services which makes it even more challenging, which is it is a low-trust industry. If you just ask lots of customers, lots of people in the country how they rate various industries, and I'm not joking, I'm not sure whether alcohol and tobacco, oh no, alcohol's even at the 59 there. So, financial services has a reputation that it needs to guard, and it needs to make sure that trust isn't further eroded. So this is not an industry where the traditional innovation strategy of try many things and keep what works, or done is better than perfect, those are strategies that are the luxury of a more forgiving, more trusted industry than financial services, where customers expect that when they make a payment, everything will be smooth. When they enter their credentials, there is no risk of a security breach. When they electronically deposit their money someplace, it will be there. It will not be someplace else. These are the basic expectations. So there's a paradox for financial services. So far, this is quite a conundrum, because we know that we're going to get disrupted. We know that mobile is accelerating the disruption faster than anything else. And we know that there's this paradox of you need to experiment in financial services, but you have to be very, very careful in how you do it. So for us, for Discover, we took a look at what we're good at, and we decided to try to amp that up. And as a slight tangent, I'll say that, we talked about the disruption of the iPhone 6 years ago. The iPhone came out. No doubt, the iPhone is a powerful disruptor. But what really made the difference was 5 years ago when Apple opened the ecosystem and let your sons and daughters, my cousins, my uncle, anybody develop an application for this huge ecosystem, and ensured the security of it, and ensured the reliability and the deliverability, and basically curated the content. And to the degree to which that was open, that was the key strategy for taming the complex ecosystem. And where we sit at financial services right now is a very similar challenge. We have lots of proprietary systems, lots of proprietary networks, lots of non-interoperable with other networks and banks and so forth. And the complexity is overwhelming. I don't know how it's going to get solved, but I do know that at some point, opening the ecosystem entirely seems to be what's going to deliver the disruption. And we had some insight into that back a few years ago, and we looked at how that would align to our business goals and what opening an ecosystem would mean for us, and whether it would accelerate our trajectory. And we redesigned the way that we go to market with things. Our old way was a traditional waterfall development process. Anybody in IT or any of you poor project managers that are subject to this understand the difficulty of a waterfall development process, which is that you design an experience for a customer, you write it all out like a project brief. Maybe you work into a prototype, maybe you don't. You hand it off to IT, they code it, they test it, it takes months, then you roll it out to the market. And that was probably fine for financial services in the 90s. That might have even been fine for financial services pre-2005. But sometime during the big disruption, when you could all of a sudden get an app that was a compass, and an app that was a level, and an app that was a megaphone for a soccer game. Some point, customers began to expect that things were going to happen much faster than that waterfall development process was yielding. And for us at Discover, we saw that. We saw that because we had managed to make web experiences and our first few mobile experiences and basically all of our customer interaction. It had complexity at the customer level. We were big into features, and we were big into trying to look at what the market was doing and look at what a few customers asked for and creating these features in our delivery. And the result was that we had just an explosion of features and complexity pushed to the customer. And I remember very clearly, let me see if this works here. I remember very clearly that I saw an article in Forbes. I had just gotten the job at Discover. I came from another big bank. I've always had some sort of financial services in my career. And I remember getting to Discover and looking at an article in Forbes that it was published very recently, within the last 3 months or so of when I had arrived. And it said, the headline was, "Message to Discover, Innovator Perish." And I remember thinking, what have I gotten myself into here? Innovator perish, and with my job. So a little bit of it was transitioning an enterprise. That's the topic here. Transitioning an enterprise and managing a digital innovation stream. Some of it is, don't go for disruption, go for innovation. Some of it is rethink what it is that you're trying to achieve. For us, listening to the consumer was always obvious. Everybody says listening to the consumer. Yes, you want to listen to the consumer, but some of it is just focusing on imagination around feasibility and what you can do. So for us, our watershed moment, innovator perish, remember that headline. We looked at the business model around App Store and came up to a conclusion which basically was, stop trying to give customers so much complexity and choice, and reverse the whole pyramid so that the complexity moves to the organization. This was not something that made the purchasing people, the HR people, the finance people, this was not something that made the rest of the organization happy, because it adds staff, it adds complexity to the organization, it adds infrastructure. It is more difficult to be simple for the customer because you move the complexity back to your organization. And this is probably the leadership challenge in a large enterprise, which is one of the more difficult things to confront, is that you're going to have to add people to handle development for each Android device, for each iDevice, you're going to have to add teams to test. Everything is going to get more expansive and more complicated. Social media, partnership with the commerce companies along the way, all of that takes staff and resources, and you can outsource some of it, but it is a very high price. You can M&A a lot of it, but the integration adds additional layers of difficulty. Suffice to say, the summary strategy is we simplified for our customer, and we reduced the number of features in our go-to-customer software. We focused on things like navigation, we focused on things like usability, and we just reduced complexity. So that is a plus and a minus, because as you know, in the digital world, everybody that has a phone thinks they know some good idea that you should do, that you should build to help solve their problem. Because they're a user of it, they obviously understand how it would work. So there's a lot of internal political movement and so forth, but the simplification strategy turns out to yield a new way of doing things. It has a much faster release cadence, it has a much faster design cadence, and it, like a lot of great companies had already figured out, it involved the customer to test and prototype and beta things. And frankly, customer trust around your brand expands when you disclose to them that this is an experimental feature, we may or may not keep it. I think you'll see going forward with a lot of the mobile commerce efforts that are happening today, that a lot of them will just dry up. They will evolve into something else, and customers will accept that. How did that work out for us? Well, we didn't perish. That's the good news. This is 5 years of history as of last week on our stock price, which was 5 years ago, was right in the middle of the crisis. And the blue line is Discover. Our other competitors, Visa and MasterCard, are below us, and then the banks, where we're also in competition for a customer wallet share, are below. So you can see things are working out for us from that perspective. So lesson number 2, the first point was go for innovation, have an innovation strategy, not a disruption strategy. You won't see disruption when it happens. The second is simplicity is a fine strategy. Simplicity is a fine strategy, especially if you can get it so that all the complexity is handled before the customer sees it. Pretty simple stuff. We have a couple of features that are just coming out, and this is just kind of crystallizing the idea, but one of them is, there's this juxtaposition between people ask us for more complex password technology all the time. We have our Facebook feedback and our blog feedback and our customer calls. People say, you need to try to augment my security with all these bells and whistles. And it's true. Yeah, you have to stay one step ahead of the bad guys in security. But the key is to do the security in a way that customers really don't experience it, because they also want convenience. So for us, we figured go simple to the customer, more complex on the back end. One of the great things that a mobile device allows you to do is tie it to the device itself. So we implemented a 4-digit passcode, and we implemented a way to check the basic, sorry about the slides. That says quick view, by the way. We implemented a basic balance check and credit line check and so forth without logging in. A lot of it has to do with just the trade-off between convenience and security. So a customer can turn on an option on their device, and they don't have to log in. They don't have to type in all of their information. They just kind of swipe, and they see balance and credit line. And for us, the cash reward bank is something that we want to make sure that people can get to too. So those are just 2 simple examples. Instant access, convenience-driven, customer-driven. So focus on innovation, not disruption. Remember that core, adjacent, and transformational. I think in mobile commerce, you're going to hear a lot about people's transformational spending and their transformational budgets, but the majority of the innovation will happen at the core level. And making it simpler for the customer is a fine strategy. That's it. Thank you very much. I'm not exactly sure who's coming next, so can I answer any questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you for rescuing me.
You're welcome. Hi, David Schrofer with the Luciano Group. You mentioned
David.
a lot of innovative strategies. Thanks for your presentation. How is it going with PayPal so far? Anything new that you can share with us?
Well, I will say that I can only talk about what is publicly available, but as for the benefit of the rest of the room, one of our business models is to take our network and make it available for use by other partners. And so PayPal, PayPal based here, has desires to be used offline at POS. And so our network is being made available for PayPal to basically use cards at POS under the PayPal brand, not the Discover brand. I think that it's an exciting project, and it's on schedule. And that's really all I can say about it. But I appreciate the question, David. I think I got one more, and then I'm going to get kicked off.
Michael Singer with Tab Times. Just a quick question in terms of your strategy on mobile is, established here, obviously. Do you have a different presentation, look, feel, development, simplicity for tablet devices? Because a lot of shopping happens, in the lean back experience. So if you could address maybe the differences between what you've done for, say, smartphones versus what you're doing for tablet.
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, with all this stuff, we're figuring it out. Anybody that stands up here and preaches that they know what they're doing, I'm not sure that that's true. We're figuring it out. But what I do know is that in our prototypes and the things that we go to customers and we ask them, they say that they do a lot more shopping on the tablet than on the mobile device in general. I think this is kind of something that you can figure out. And so it's not as important for us to deliver quick access to the recent transactions or balances. It's maybe a little bit more important to have integration with merchants. One of the things that payments companies like Discover can do is have a deeper integration with merchants. We learned that through integrating with Amazon, where our rewards currency is used to pay for Amazon items. And the deeper that you can get into that integration, the better. A lot of that is very web heavy. It requires each side to have APIs, and it gets complex. So probably that will pay off on the tablet more than e-commerce in the long run, more than desktop e-commerce in the long run. And so I think that is where we're designing. Certainly, the tablet experience is a different design path altogether. A lot of tablet use happens to be secondary to watching TV. And so to the extent that you have opportunities to tie it into television in real time, that seems to be what's working. Great. Well, I'll be here for lunch, and it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.